See that shelf back there? It's got some really cool stuff. We got some movies, we got some memorabilia from places I've traveled to, we got our Lego, we got our SpongeBob shrine over there. But at the bottom shelf, right over there, you can hardly see it on the camera, are all my books. And you wanna know something? There are still some there that I have yet to read. And I got, I'd say most of those between late elementary school and early to mid high school. I'm 22 now. And the craziest bit to me is that I loved reading growing up. I remember in elementary school, we'd have like a 30 to 40 minute just reading period. I'd bring my book every single day to class and I would just lose myself in this world. I read all the Harry Potter books, all the Percy Jackson books, most of the Mitchell Brothers series, and a bunch of just other miscellaneous stories, fun facts, and just cool novels. And then I stopped. So, to challenge myself, to get back into the world of reading, to fall back in love with it, to expand my knowledge for all these things, I'm going to challenge myself to read for at least 30 minutes a day for the next 30 days. And what better way to start it off than a book about true undying love? We should probably get some food too. Let's go. Oh yeah. Better with two hands. Shit, I missed it. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There you go. That was a delicious breakfast. Thank you very much, Marco. Oh, you are quite welcome, Marco. I'm on the porch right now. I have my book in hand, although I'm realizing now I'm about to go out. My friends are gonna pick me up in a bit, and I don't think I have enough time to sit aside to read as the allotted time that I want to do, so I'm gonna have to plan this a little better in the future for these next few days. I'm starting to realize now that this might just be the toughest part of the challenge, is trying to find an hour to just sit aside each day, not do anything, and just read, because I'm always on the go, I'm always doing something. So when I got home later that day, I did it. I sat aside 30 minutes and officially started this challenge. And here's me thinking that reading is like riding a bike, you never forget. And although after my many years of education, the actual reading part was pretty simple, it was the getting back into the mindset of reading that I had forgotten. How would I describe the first day of reading? It was like trying to get comfortable on an airplane, you know? Shimmying around in your seat, trying to get into that one position and just get some sleep. You either settle for something a little less comfortable and try to get some sleep, or you just accept defeat. Yeah, it's safe to say the first day was a little tough. I don't know, it felt weird. But as the days went on, like anything else, you learn to adapt. If we're still using the airplane analogy here, I was surprisingly able to get comfortable. And I think that's the case because I found something that worked for me. My usual bedtime routine would be to wash up, you know, all that jazz, eventually get into bed, scroll through the socials, watch some videos, and then eventually catch some Z's. Now where do I fit in the time to read? Light bulb. Why not just swap it? I would spend less time pointlessly scrolling through social media and instead fill it with something actually productive. And because I didn't drastically change anything, just substituted, I was able to find a balance. This way I could still do the other things I cared about, you know, absolutely bawling on the b-ball courts. Hanging out with my friends and family. Representing and supporting my culture. and then come home to read pretty much every night. You know, not to toot my own horn or anything, but it worked like a charm. I read for 8 out of the first 9 days. I missed one because of poor scheduling on my behalf. What could you do? Raptors were in the playoffs. The Raps just lost Game 5 of the NBA Finals by one point. I am genuinely upset, and I've been sitting in bed forever, but a challenge is a challenge. Gotta get back to reading, even though I'm very, very emotional right now. And you know what? I was damn proud of myself. I was on a high and nothing would take me down from it. Or at least I thought. Then the injury happened. Long story short, I had punctured my foot, and the doctor said I was unable to walk on it for at least a week. Now, coming from a sports background, I especially hate injuries. Luckily, I had never had an injury too serious in my playing career, but just the idea of them being incapable of doing what you love or anything, really, it sucks. And what made this injury so much worse is that I was in the groove. I was in form. I had my black FIFA card. All my stats were boosted. And then this avalanche of emotional, physical, mental pain just came crashing onto me. I'll be honest with you guys, I was not in the right state to continue this challenge the way I wanted to. So for the next 4 days, days 10 through 13, I didn't even touch a book. Instead, I caught up on TV, watched some movies, and just did nothing because that's what I needed to do at that time. And yeah, it hurt because I had made such great progress up until that time, but I knew I couldn't continue like that. Thankfully though, after 4 days of clearing my head, I pulled out Gone Girl again and I read, and it felt like I had never stopped. Within those first 3 days back, I read almost 100 pages. My highest 3-day total to date. And just like that, I was back in it. So yeah, life got in the way, but it only stays in the way if you let it. Those following 10 days after my injury, I didn't let it. Instead, I actually killed it. I read 50% of the book over those days. 50%. Fit it. I actually remember vividly that there was a point after I finished a chapter, I was on my patio outside where I looked out into the evening sky. The beautiful summer colors were fading away and it felt so right. I was at a point where I realized I wasn't reading for the challenge anymore. I was reading because I wanted to. From that day on, I didn't necessarily plan out my readings anymore. I read when it felt right. My 30 minutes a day of reading turned into however long I wanted it to, sometimes well over an hour. And I don't know whether to thank Gillian Flynn for that with her impeccable writing and her incredible storytelling, or myself for getting out of that hump. It was most likely Gillian. You know what's crazy? From someone who loves movies, especially David Fincher's adaptation, which I really need to rewatch, by the way. It wasn't until I picked up a novel again that I realized how much I love a good story. After all this incredible progress, life caught up with me again. I missed the next 2 days of reading. But you know what? I didn't care. I spent one day doing just other stuff and another at a friend's pool party. And you know what? It was a damn good pool party. Thanks, Danny. And I even brought my book to it. I didn't end up reading it because I had such a great time without it. I mean, just check it out. Yeah. Okay, we're done. And at this point you may be saying, Marco, what the hell? You started a 30-day challenge and you haven't been sticking to it. And that's a fair point. Fair point, but to that I say, screw you. No, but seriously, when I started this challenge, I started with that strict kind of punishment system. Like I told you, I missed one day in my first 9 days and I kind of beat myself up for it. But as the challenge went on, I realized why I really wanted to do this in the first place. I wanted to fall back in love with reading. I didn't want it to feel like a chore. I wanted it to feel like a hobby again, and by that third week, it did. And just because life throws itself at you sometimes and you can't find the time to do these hobbies that you love, you shouldn't beat yourself up for it. I found a balance that I craved, and thankfully reading found its way back into it. As if this challenge wasn't hard enough, I was going away on vacation for the last few days of it. Thus, I made a visit to a place I hadn't been to in a very long time. My public library. It felt really weird, but really cool at the same time going back there. Knowing the kind of style of book that I like, I browsed through a bunch and eventually picked one. And thus, Into the Wild was my next chapter in my reading journey. Now let me tell you something. Reading's hard when you travel, especially for me, because I'm the kind of traveler that just goes non-stop. I gotta see this, gotta just soak in everything while I'm here. So since that was the case, that's where trains and planes and waiting for them and your time on board really come in handy. But I've got to pat myself on the back for this one, because knowing that Portugal has some of the nicest beaches in the world, I think I did a pretty damn good job planning for my final day. All right, today's my final day of my 30 days of reading challenge, and what better place to do it than on the coast of Portugal reading a nice little book. Whoa, the water's so cold right now. That was that. The challenge was officially over. It's safe to say I fell back in love with reading, but I also did my best to navigate through this crazy adventure we call life. And you know what? I even learned a few things about myself along the way. But I think the thing that I took most out of this challenge was learning how to balance all these things. It wasn't easy, and it's gonna be different for everyone, but once you find what works for you, find your sweet spot, it'll be worth it. Trust me, you'll be happy to know I continue to read. Not every day, but whenever it feels right to. I'm actually still chipping away at this, and as of filming, I'm about a third of the way through, but I'll get there. I am by no means a fast reader. I prefer to sip on it instead, to enjoy reading and life all at the same time. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I know this was kind of a different video, but it's something I've always wanted to do. So if you do like it, let me know, and I will do my best to make some more. But until next time, you guys know the drill. I'm Marco Pereira. Ciao for now.